You've spent your whole life doing something completely impossible. Right now, as you read these words, your brain is translating tiny squiggles on a screen into thoughts, sounds into meaning, arbitrary mouth shapes into entire worlds of feeling and memory and future plans. It's so normal you never notice how strange it is. But here's the question that changes everything. How did we ever learn to do this in the first place? Your ancestors didn't wake up one morning and decide language was a good idea. There was no moment when someone invented grammar. So what actually happened? The answer is hiding in a gap, not in our modern brains, but in a crack between our ape cousins and us. And once you see it, you'll understand why language didn't just change how we talk, it changed what it means to be human. Let's go back, way back. Around 6 or 7 million years ago, our ancestors split from the line that would become chimpanzees. And for millions of years after that, we didn't have language. We had something else. We had sounds, calls that meant danger, or food, or come here. We had bodies, gestures, facial expressions, the ability to read another creature's attention and intention. We had this incredible gift for reading each other's minds by watching faces, but we didn't have language. Not yet. Here's what makes this crucial. Chimpanzees can learn human sign language. They can learn hundreds of signs and put them together in new ways. But they never invented it on their own. They never woke up one day and thought, you know what, we should systematize our communication. We did that. We're the only species that did. Why? The answer starts with your mouth, specifically with a bone in your throat. Most primates have a larynx, a voice box, but it sits high up in the throat. Ours is lower, much lower. That lower larynx gave us something extraordinary, the ability to make fine, precise sounds. We could shape our breath into consonants, vowels, subtle differences that other animals can't. We gained the physical capacity for language, but that capacity sat dormant for a very, very long time. So something else had to push us to use it. Neuroscientist James McClelland from Stanford has spent decades studying how our brains actually learn language. What he discovered is shocking. We're not born with a language instinct waiting to be triggered. Instead, we have a powerful learning system, one that's hungry for patterns, for prediction, for building models of how the world works. Language wasn't invented to fill a biological urge. It was invented because it solved a problem our growing brains couldn't handle alone. Our ancestors were becoming smarter. Their brains were getting bigger, growing from about 400 cubic centimeters to eventually 1,400 cubic centimeters over millions of years. They were thinking about more things. They were making more complex tools. They were living in bigger groups. And here's the thing. You can only keep track of so many relationships in your head. Primatologist Robin Dunbar discovered that most primate groups max out at around 150 individuals. That's the limit of how many relationships one brain can juggle by just paying attention and remembering faces.
But human groups were getting bigger. Trade networks were expanding. People needed to coordinate hunts across larger distances, pass down knowledge across generations, negotiate with other groups. You could smile at someone and know they were happy. But how do you keep track of who owes whom a favor? How do you remember the sacred story your grandmother told you about where the world came from? How do you make a deal with someone from another tribe that you might not see for years? You needed words. You needed a way to store ideas outside your own brain. And here's where it gets beautiful. Language didn't appear all at once. It evolved gradually, and it started not with words, but with gesture. Anthropologist David McNeil spent his life studying how humans gesture. He discovered something profound. Gesture and speech aren't separate things. They're twins. When you talk, you gesture unconsciously. When you think, you gesture even when no one's watching. Our ancestors were already using their hands to communicate, pointing, reaching, making shapes in the air that mimicked what they meant. A gesture for throwing, a gesture for animal, a gesture for come with me. Then something extraordinary happened. Those gestures started bleeding into sound. A grunt that matched the shape of the throwing motion, a click that sounded like water, a breath pattern that felt like running. Gesture and sound began merging into something new, something that could travel in the dark, through walls, across distance. You didn't need to see someone's hands anymore. You could hear them. This is the birth of language, not a sudden invention, a slow, creeping transformation of communication systems that were already there. Once we had words, everything changed, and I mean everything. Language did something no other animal communication system does. It lets you talk about things that don't exist. You can describe a hunt you haven't done yet. You can warn your friends about a predator you've never seen. You can pass down stories about ancestors from hundreds of years ago. You can dream about a future and explain that dream to someone else, and suddenly you're not alone in that vision anymore. You're building it together. This is where language becomes a tool for civilization itself. Historian Jared Diamond calls language the glue of human society. Without it, we're limited to small groups held together by personal relationship and face-to-face trust. With it, we can coordinate thousands of people around shared stories, shared rules, shared beliefs. Language let us organize empires. It let us pass down knowledge from one generation to the next without losing anything. It let us dream together. If this kind of deep history about how language shaped us is landing for you, following along genuinely helps this little channel keep going. We're exploring the hidden architecture of human nature, where our behaviors, our fears, our desires all came from, and I'd love to have you along for that journey. So if this is resonating, consider following. Now, what does all this mean for you right now in a world flooded with words? Here's what linguists and neuroscientists have discovered. Your language doesn't just describe your thoughts, it shapes them. The words available to you literally change what you can think. If your language has 5 words for snow, you see snow differently than someone who only has 1. If your culture has words for emotions that other cultures don't have, you experience emotion differently. Language isn't a neutral tool for expressing pre-existing thoughts. It's a mold. It's a pair of glasses. It shapes the reality you can see. Your ancestors spent millions of years without language, and they were complete humans. They loved, they feared, they solved problems and created beauty. But the moment language arrived, they gained something else entirely: the ability to think about thinking, to name their own consciousness, to carry the voices of their ancestors inside their own minds. And now, you carry that gift. Every word you speak is the product of that long, slow transformation from grunts and gestures to grammar and metaphor. You're walking around with communication technology that took your species millions of years to build. You told yourself language was just a way to exchange information, but now you know something different. Language wasn't invented because we needed to talk about things. Language was invented because we needed to think about things we'd never seen, to coordinate with people we'd never met, to dream dreams too big for one brain alone. Language is how we became human. That's what changed everything. If this shifted something for you, there's another one waiting. It picks up right where this leaves off. Take care.